Alright then, ladies and gents, in this video we're going to be doing a breakdown of the Fallout TV series Episode 2. Let's get into it. In the opening scene, we're met with a scientist launching a live puppet into an incinerator. Lovely. What a way to open an episode. From what we can tell by the way these guys are dressed and the environment that they're in, it's obviously some form of laboratory, isn't it? You'll also notice that they're wearing pit boys as well, and there's only one faction that I know of that actually wears such items, and that's the Vault Dwellers. Now, the Enclave potentially could have some, you know, due to the fact that they are heavily involved with the vaults, considering they had a hand in creating them, but I'm not sure at this point. Anyhow, I digress. Even though there's a sign on the wall that states to incinerate any pup that's under 10 ounces, this scientist right here takes pity on this particular dog who weighs in at just under the magic 10. What an absolute legend. He's just saved a puppy from being burnt to an absolute crisp. Beautiful. Shortly after weighing the dog and fudging the numbers, the scientist then brands the dog with the name CX404. We then get a little time shift and we see the lucky pup again. Obviously, he's a little bit older, he's not a newborn anymore. In fact, he looks to be in extremely good shape, unlike his little brother or sister that was incinerated. He looked more like Anakin Skywalker at the end of Revenge of the Sith. Alright then, so for reasons unbeknownst to us, when CX404 is going up to get injected by this dude here, the scientist from the first scene actually steps in, scoops him up and takes him outside, seemingly protecting him from this bloody injection. Now at this point, I think we can safely deduce that this character and his dog are the ones that the Brotherhood of Steel are hunting from episode 1. You know, the guy who's described as a denizen of the Enclave who's escaped from the Commonwealth by the Elder. This is all well and good, however, when we do step outside in this scene and actually see where the doctor and the dog is, this doesn't look like an Enclave facility. I mean, that kind of makes sense considering that at this point in the Fallout timeline, the Enclave are pretty much non-existent. What does confuse me though is it doesn't look like a Brotherhood facility either, and out of all the factions in the Commonwealth that I think could put something together as advanced as this, I mean for Christ's sake they've got running trains, the Brotherhood is the only real option. Yes, the Institute were very advanced, but they're destroyed, they're not even involved in this. Sorry about that, I've gone on a bit of a tangent about this thing. Yeah, I'm not sure who is holding him, it's definitely a prison. I can't explain the pit boys to you, but yeah, it doesn't really matter, does it? All we need to know is that this is the guy that the Brotherhood is hunting, and we can also see in the background actually that the dogs weren't being experimented on, surprisingly enough. It just looks like they've been trained as guard dogs. Yeah, simply lovely. As the episodes progress, we see that the scientist has actually taken the dog and kept hold of him. Now, I don't think he should be doing that. I think he's going to get in trouble. But I don't actually think he gives a shit. He's become really attached to this dog, as we can see over the following scenes. He's got to the point where he's actually trying to teach it to sit. Another interesting thing as well, we actually realise this dog is a girl. So all the times that I've been calling it he, just ignore that. Just totally forget about it. Dogs don't seem to be this guy's only concern though. Throughout these scenes we see him messing around with this little vial here, which to me it looks like it contains a kyber crystal. That's physically impossible considering that's from the Star Wars universe, but you know, I like Star Wars. What can I say really? Either way, whether it's a kyber crystal or something that is actually possible to be in Fallout, it must be pretty important to the Doctor, because in this scene here, he actually injects it into his neck. Yeah, well, it's better than shoving it up your arsehole, isn't it? Let's be honest. So after having 40 winks, the Doctor wakes up and decides to go and have a chat with his dog, who's in this little makeshift bed area that is created over here. As you can see, Mon Petit Fleurs, this is supposed to be hidden because this Doctor should not have possession of CX404, as is made evident by the arrival of one of the Doctor's colleagues. This guy's first reaction is to Dobby's mating, so what happens to him next for attempting to do so is probably deserved. You see, after a short scuffle with this new arrival, the good Doctor is actually thrown to the floor, and the colleague that walked into his room manages to pull the alarm. This chap's about to have a very bad day though. The dog who's just witnessed his owner thrown to the floor jumps up and rips the guy's throat out. What's that old adage that they use? Snitches get stitches? Yeah, in this case, I don't think any amount of stitches are gonna fix this man. So despite the immediate danger passing, or should I say the immediate danger having its fucking throat ripped out, it's about time that the doctor and his dog make a hasty escape. The alarm's been pulled and shit's gonna hit the fan. I don't know how they managed to do it, but for some strange and unknown reason, they managed to get outside of the facility, but they come face to face with this turret here. Now again, I don't know how they pull off this next bit. I think this guy's just got plot armor thicker than Shakira's thighs, but they managed to avoid every single shot that is fired at them. And believe it or not, yeah, they do make a successful escape. Now, this whole opening prologue scene thing, it does set up this character very well. It explains why the Brotherhood is actually out trying to hunt him. As I say though, I'm still very confused as to what exactly is escaped from. As described at the end of episode 1, this guy is described as a denizen of the Enclave, and that has come from the cleric of the Brotherhood in the Commonwealth. But to me, that doesn't look like the Brotherhood of Steel, and why they are wearing pit boys? It could be that they're being forced to work. I don't know, guys. I don't think that's ever going to get answered, but it was just something that's something that's played on my mind a little bit, something I'd like to question. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up that character's introduction to the series. In the next scene, we're taken back to Lucy, and she's still wandering around near Vault 33, so it seems. You know, just taking in the surroundings. It's her first time above ground, you know, she's trying to get used to it all. She spends the next couple of minutes wandering along this coast, past shipwrecks, abandoned buildings, until she gets to this house here with a load of people that have committed harry-carry. Now, guys, I could be wrong, but this does look like it was filmed at the Skeleton Coast. Like I say, I probably am wrong, but it's got that kind of look to it. Let me know down in comments, I'm intrigued. Now, Lucy doesn't stay at this shack for long. You know, she's in the presence of a couple of skeletons and one of them's a kid. It's not exactly something you want to be around for any extended time, is it? The scene quickly fades to night and we see her outside of another building attempting to make a fire. Now, this shows Lucy's naivety. You don't really set fires in the wasteland, do you? That's just asking for attention to be dragged to you. Something we see in this scene here. Yes, look who's turned up. It's CX404. And what a good time to arrive, because shortly after this, the dog plunges into the darkness and absolutely mauls a rad roach. A rad roach that was probably gonna try and kill Lucy. I tell you, this dog is an absolute beast. Fair play to it. As to be expected, right? Wherever that dog goes, the scientist isn't going to be far behind. And here he is, look here, just chilling on a chair straight across from Lucy. Not sure if he's been sitting there staring at her for the last couple of hours, but yeah, it is what it is. If it wasn't freaky enough waking up, seeing a man staring at you while his dog mauled a giant bug at the side of you, the scientist also goes into detail about how cockroaches have evolved and are now pretty terrifying. What a way to be introduced to a total stranger. Yeah, not exactly how I'd want it to go down. Now, not only does the scientist absolutely terrify Lucy, and I've actually just found the scientist's name as well. It's Dr. Siggy Wilzig, so we're just going to be calling him Siggy from now on. Anyway, he also pretty much confirms that Lucy is being an idiot, you know, like I say, setting fires in the middle of the wasteland. The conversation continues, and Lucy explains that she's on a mission to try and find her father. Ziggy responds by telling her that she needs to go home. The wasteland isn't designed for vault dwellers. They're not used to it. He doesn't think she could do the things needed to survive on the surface. Now, obviously, Lucy being Lucy responds with, she's not going home without her father. Ziggy then tells her she needs to adapt. She needs to become a wastelander rather than a vault dweller. The scene ends with Ziggy wandering off into the night with 404, leaving Lucy rather scared and confused, I imagine. Next up, we're back with Maximus, and you can see him here in his vertibird with Knight Titus out on the mission trying to find the target. You know, the Enclave dissident that's escaped from the Commonwealth. Now, I'm not saying that the target is Dr. Ziggy and his dog, but the target's Dr. Ziggy and his dog. I think that's pretty obvious, isn't it? Now, there isn't too much that goes on in this scene. We can see Maximus trying to create small talk with Knight Titus. However, Titus ain't having none of it. In fact, he whips off his cock armor and launches it at Maximus and tells him to clean it. That is that is one way of telling somebody that they are your bitch, I guess. Yeah, very amusing scene, to be honest with you. Titus and Maximus don't stay in the vertibird for too long. In fact, they jump out into seemingly the middle of nowhere, with Maximus moaning about it from start to finish. He also gets hit in the nose again. I think that's like the 87th time that's happened in this series, and we're only 2 episodes in. Anyhow, they get down to the ground, and the scene ends with Maximus and Titus walking off into the wilderness, with Maximus carrying a ridiculously large bag. I mean, that is, that's way oversized, isn't it? Totally not practical at all. Next up, we're back with Dr. Ziggy and the Battle Dog, and they come up to this cave here. Now, if you've played the Fallout games, caves are never a good idea to hang around in front of. 99.9% of the time, there is usually some beastie inside of it, whether that be a Wendigo, a Deathclaw, a Yaoguai. There's always something, right? As we're about to find out, yeah, as the good doctor sits down to enjoy a snack, in this case it's cram, again, really cool to see this kind of stuff in the Fallout series. Yeah, as he sits down to enjoy his snack, CX-404 runs off into the cave and returns with a human hand. There's obviously been some horrific shit that's gone down here, isn't there? We don't actually get to find out what's in the cave in this scene, but the hand coupled with the skeletons all over the floor is enough to make the doctor think, fuck this, and he leaves his food and buggers off. He isn't waiting around to find out. Anyway, after a fantastic shot of the wasteland, we're put back in the company of Knight Titus and Maximus. And these men must have been travelling at Mach 3 because they stumble across the same cave that the good doctor has just been at moments earlier. Now, they do find some remnants of Dr. Ziggy being here, so unlike the good doctor, they actually decide to explore the cave, which, let's be honest, isn't the greatest idea. But anyhow, despite Titus having, you know, power armor and a full-on assault rifle, he decides to send Maximus in the cave first. Now, Maximus, as much as I'm not a massive fan of him at this point, he does rightly question why he's been sent in rather than Titus. Titus explains that the armor is earned through bravery, and this indeed is a brave act. So, Maximus pulls his bollocks out of his handbag and proceeds to enter the cave. Reluctantly, I may add, but he does just get on with it. After mooching around for a bit, it becomes evident what lives inside of that cave. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a Yaoguai. Now, for those of you watching who are new to the series, a Yaoguai is effectively a mutated bear. Now, they're called Yaoguai because that's what Chinese prisoners named them. Why everybody calls them that, I do not know. I mean, bear would suffice, but yeah, that's just how it is. Just don't question it. Anyhow, yeah, this giant mutated bear ends up having a scrap with Titus. And you know what, right? Titus actually does put up a bit of a fight. However, towards the end of it, he turns around and runs off screaming, fuck, fuck, fuck. Now, that was actually a really funny scene. I did piss my sides at that. It also makes you realise just how dangerous the Fallout Wasteland is. That bear really did mess up Titus, and the guy was wearing power armor. This is the first really dangerous bit of wildlife we've seen. Yeah, we've had the rad roach, but Battle Dog dispatched that no problems whatsoever. Alright, we're a pretty cool seeing this, and it only gets better in my opinion. The fight between Titus and the Yaoguai continues outside. For some strange reason, the bear totally ignores Maximus and just chases this giant metal man. Doesn't make sense to me. Maximus is the easier of the two in terms of prey. However, guys, as we all know, plot armor is much more protective than power armor. Anyhow, the fight goes on for a while until Maximus shoots the bear through the head, which kills it. Now, I can speak from experience of, you know, playing the games. It takes more than a 10mm pistol to kill a Yaoguai. The fight concludes with Titus being seriously screwed up. He is on the verge of death, and he asks Maximus to get him a stim pack from the stupidly large bag that he carries. There is actually some really funny dialogue here. It's mostly Titus complaining about having a fight with a bear and whatnot, but he does make the mistake of goading Maximus and threatening him. This is where we see the darker side of Maximus. His character starts to develop a little bit. He literally straight up tells Titus he doesn't deserve his power armor, he's gonna get the target himself, and watches him die. Straight up with you now, I'd do the same. If some bloke made me clean his bollock cup, I wouldn't be in the best of moods with him either. Especially if he give me shit after me just saving him from a 2-ton irradiated bear. Okay, so now we're back with Lucy, and we see her making her way across the wasteland, and she stumbles across this shack here with a bloke wearing a nappy. They have a brief conversation. Lucy asks if the guy's seen anybody with a prisoner walking past, gives him some water, which he downs in one. Fair play to dude. And the chap lets her know there's a settlement nearby called Philly. Now, that's not to be confused with Philadelphia. The place is just called Philly, as in, you know, a horse, I guess. Yeah. This is a pretty uneventful scene, but there is some funny dialogue in it between Lucy and the bloke wearing a nappy, and it sets up the next part of Lucy's adventure. Before we see where she gets to, though, we go back to Maximus, who is putting on Titus's power armor. We then see him doing a load of stupid shit, like running across the wasteland, throwing some rocks in the sea, kicking the shit out of a building for some unknown reason. We also see him intervening in a fight between these two blokes here. Now, the long and short of it is, the guy that he saved was trying to fuck this man's chickens. Yeah, that is literally the whole premise of this conversation. I mean, we've had cousin fucking, we might as well get the chickens in there, haven't we? This, to me, all seemed a little bit like filler. I don't think it were really needed. The whole reason behind it was to show that Maximus is learning how to use power armor, I think. It also introduces us to wrist jetpacks as well. I think that's the best way to describe them. I don't like these. It's all a bit Iron Man for me, all a bit Marvel. They just don't exist in the game, right? This is the first we're ever seeing of it. We do actually get physical jetpacks, but not farty little things in the wrists. So, yeah, not sure where they were going with this one. A couple of uneventful scenes later, Lucy finds herself in Philly, and this place is just literally a settlement built up out of scrap metal and whatever shit the Wastelanders can find. I did actually like this place though. It does give a kind of a nod to Megaton in Fallout 3. Obviously the only difference, there isn't a giant fucking nuclear bomb in the middle of it. Yeah, I must say, so far all the locations that Amazon have done in this series, they've been really good. They've been spot on in my opinion. Anyhow, I digress. As Lucy enters the town proper, she notices a pit boy for sale in one of the shops and immediately wanders on over to it. We also get a look at this guy here, and who do you think that could be? Yep, that's right, you at the back. It's our favourite cowboy, Cooper Howard. Simply lovely. Now, while we're inside the shop, we meet this incredible character called Ma June. Honestly, she's one of the best in the entire series. The actress does a fantastic job with her. Honestly, she really does portray a grumpy old wastelander perfectly. Lucy and Ma June proceed to have a conversation. Now, it starts off light-heartedly enough. Ma June can't believe that there's an actual real vault dweller in there, but the conversation does take a turn for the worst when Lucy mentions Moldava. Now, Ma June knows exactly who Moldava is, but she doesn't want to let Lucy in on any of the details around her. In fact, from this point on, Ma June basically tells Lucy to go home and berates vault dwellers. She says that people who live on the surface do not like them one bit. And just to ram the point home, she pulls out a shotgun as well. The conversation ends with Lucy leaving the shop, and as she does, guess who walks into Philly? Yep, that's right, none other than Dr. Ziggy and Battle Dog. Now, outside of the shop, Lucy and Ziggy have another conversation. It goes the way that you'd expect at first, you know, Ziggy telling Lucy to go home, she's not safe on the surface, but it does get a little bit more interesting. The doctor starts telling Lucy all about Vault 33, so he definitely has some in-depth knowledge about it. Before we can learn any more though, Ma June comes outside and asks Sibby if he is indeed, you know, Dr. Wilsig. She also tells Lucy to fuck off as well, which is, it's nice. It shows the welcoming demeanour of surface dwellers in the wasteland. Now, before the Doctor and Ma June can actually get inside, Walton Goggins and his ghoul make an appearance. And it turns out, just like the Brotherhood of Steel, the ghoul is also looking for Dr. Wilsig. Apparently, according to the ghoul, there is a hefty bounty placed on the Doctor's head, and there's a lot of people actually looking for him. Now, things escalate rather quickly. Ma June tells the ghoul that she's been paid a lot of caps to make sure that the Doctor gets out of Philly. And Cooper Howard, the ghoul, responds by blowing the bottom half of the Doctor's bloody leg off. At this point, we know there's going to be a fight, right? Everybody's gathering around looking at what's going to happen, and Ma June shouts out that she's got 1,000 bottle caps for anybody who kills the ghoul. Believe it or not, there's actually quite a few people in Philly that fancy the chances against the ghoul. However, it doesn't plan out very well for him. Throughout this whole scene, we see the skill that the ghoul possesses. What you've got to remember is, this guy is a bounty hunter. This guy is Cooper Howard, the pre-war movie star who fought in the war against China, has over 200 years life experience under his belt, and let's not forget, he is a ghoul. He can take a lot more punishment than the average human can. In fact, he actually gets shot in this scene, and it doesn't even bother him. Honestly, right, the ghoul is an absolute beast. He takes out every single person that tries to kill him. He even puts one through the leg of Ma June as well. There's actually quite a sad scene in here as well. CX-404, the Doctor's dog, actually launches himself at Cooper Howard, and Cooper Howard in return stabs the dog, seemingly killing her. At this point, it looks like the ghoul's going to step forward, take the doctor, and go and claim his bounty. However, Lucy at this point actually steps in. She tries being all democratic about it, you know, like they do in the vaults, but the ghoul isn't having any of it. He's just not taking on board anything she's saying, so Lucy actually shoots him, which is a bad mistake, because Lucy only has a tranquilizer gun, and let me tell you, right, that has no bloody effect on the ghoul, apart from pissing him off a little bit. Tranquilizers, chems, and anything in between, they do not work on ghouls. They are very resistant to them. The ghoul then raises his gun at Lucy, and it looks like he's getting ready to shoot her. But just at that moment, who do you think wanders in? Yep, that is right. It's Maximus in his power armor. Fantastic. Jesus Christ, what a shit entrance this was. Them wrist jets, rockets, whatever you want to bloody call them, they are so stupid. I hate the Iron Man element about it. I'm sorry. I know that some of you won't be bothered by that, but it is bloody annoying. It really is. Buddy Christ knows how many tons suit of power armor just landing on the floor like a bloody leaf on the water. Nah, that's just not right. It isn't right. Maximus actually tries to talk the ghoul down, but what you've got to remember is that dude fought in the Sino-American War. Yeah, he wore power armor. He was around power armor. It does not intimidate him one bit. In fact, he's so lackadaisical about it, he totally ignores him and proceeds to shoot at Lucy. Now, credit where credit's due, Maximus jumps in front of the bullet and actually techs it. Obviously, it doesn't affect him because he's in power armor, but nevertheless, it is a knightly and very noble thing to do. Well done, Maximus, well done. So, when Lucy and Maximus are lying on the floor, they come up with a plan for Lucy to get the doctor, take him out back, and wait for Maximus to finish off the ghoul. This is easier said than done, yeah? As I said before, the ghoul knows his way around power armor. He knows how to fight against it as well, and it actually turns into quite a scrap between the two. Maximus does seem to be getting the upper hand, but the ghoul is very much still in the fight. Now then, while all this is going on outside, Lucy, Jane, and of course the doctor are all inside of the shop, and they formulate a plan to get Siggy out of the shop and to Jane's client. At first, Lucy refuses, until Jane tells her who her client is. It's none other than Moldava. Reluctantly, Lucy agrees to taking the doctor, but there is one small problem. The doctor's leg's been blown off, and they have just put on this really crude and ridiculous-looking fake foot. Inevitably, this is going to cause problems, you know, trekking across a wasteland with what can only be described as... I don't even know what you describe that as. It's very interesting, isn't it? It's definitely not your typical prosthetic limb. Regardless though, Jane puts the coordinates to the shithole into Lucy's Pip-Boy, and the two of them huddle out of the back of the shop while the fight between the ghoul and Maximus is still going on. At this point, Maximus actually seems to be getting the upper hand until he makes one critical mistake. As he leaps forward to finish him off, his foot goes through a wooden floorboard and he gets stuck. I'm sure he landed on them floorboards before and they was absolutely fine. However, times change rather quickly, it appears. This is where Cooper Howard shows his knowledge of the power armor. He taunts Maximus about not reading the instruction manual, saying that he handles it like a boss, and then he proceeds to damage a weak point on the power armor itself. This totally disorientates Maximus, and he ends up using his stupid little arm thrusters to try and escape, but it all goes Pete Tong. As Lucy and the Doctor leave Philly, we can see Maximus careening overhead, totally out of control of his power armor. Well done, Maximus, well done. You really did stick that landing. Perhaps your ridiculous little arm jets would have helped you in that situation. After the battle's over and Lucy and the Doctor are well on the way, Cooper comes into the shop and starts examining the situation. He sees that Dr. Wilzig has now got a prosthetic foot, if you could call it that, I use the term loosely, and he proceeds to leave the shop in pursuit of Lucy and the good doctor. On his way out though, he notices that the dog is still alive, and we see the softer side of the ghoul here. Instead of just walking past and ignoring her or shooting her, he actually takes her inside and heals her with a stim pack. To me, this shows that there's still a little bit of pre-war Cooper Howard in him. You know, you saw how he was with his daughter in the first episode. I think a vestige of that is still inside of him, even after 200 years. Anyhow, after healing the dog, both of them leave Philly together in pursuit of Lucy. In what is pretty much the final scene yet, we see Lucy and the doctor wandering across the wasteland, and it's not looking good for him yet. That prosthetic bin lid that he's got strapped to what's left of his leg is not doing him any favours. It's still bleeding profusely, and it's obvious the guy's in a pretty bad way. At this point, Wilsig calls it and says that he has to rest, and they choose to have a little break under this satellite here, and I thought that was an excellent touch, guys. If you look at the logos that are on the side of it, it says the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP. What an awesome little touch of detail. Yeah, I did enjoy that. Nice work, Amazon. Nice work. Now, while they're having this little rest, it becomes apparent that Siggy, or Dr. Wilsig, I know I've used about 3 different names for him in this video already, he isn't going to make it, yeah. Lucy says they still have 20 miles to go, and that prosthetic microwave he's got strapped to him, it isn't going to cut it. Now, Ziggy fully understands this to the point where he actually takes cyanide, and there is a little bit of funny dialogue about its taste in this scene, but the long and short of it is, Dr. Ziggy is gonna die. During this conversation, though, the doctor says to Lucy that she only needs to take his head to Moldova. Remember the little kyber crystal thing he put in his neck at the beginning? That's the reason why, guys. And yeah, if you haven't worked it out already, that's why every bugger's after him. That little bit of technology that he put in his neck turns out to be something very crucial and very important indeed. Obviously, the doctor does pass away. He's taken bloody cyanide for Christ's sake. But he does leave Lucy with a ripper that he pulls out of his bag. Now, a ripper's a little handheld chainsaw. And this is where Lucy's got to make a choice. Can she actually cut off the doctor's head, or has she not got the stomach for it? The episode ends with her saying okie dokie. We don't see her do it, but we will find out in episode 3. And that just about wraps it up. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Again, let me know in the comments if you want to see another breakdown. They do take forever to do, so if you're not interested in them, then I won't bother, quite simply. As we say in the north, I'll love you and leave you, and I'll catch you next one. Have fun, everybody.